I was telling myself. But here's the thing. I turned myself around. I was lucky. The horrible events I experienced when I was 8 years old occurred before there were fancy theories floating around everywhere about trauma and victims. The problem with this latest story invented about us by Kitsiwa Manawak, that we are a product of historical trauma, isn't just that it again makes us lesser people with a disorder. The problem is that it takes away our ability to do anything about it for ourselves. We can't fix colonization. We can't fix residential schools. We can't change Kitsiwa Manawak opinions of us. If we are a product of historical trauma, and so we're then victims, we are stuck in that story with no way of telling our way out of it. And so, yes, I was lucky, because I never was diagnosed as or labeled a victim. When I was mature enough to realize that those events had caused some of my behaviors, I quit telling myself the story that the only reason things were not the way I wanted them to be was because my father had died. I forgave him for dying and went out and found new and better stories about who I was. I changed the story about who I was and am. And, speaking of history and story and defining who we are, throughout the text I have used the word Indian. Some people might have a problem with the word and find it offensive. We have all heard the story that Columbus was lost and thought he landed in India and mistook us for Indians. I prefer the explanation offered by Russell Means and the American Indian Movement, or AIM. Columbus was not lost. He knew where he was, and he called us Indios, meaning with God. The word is not as important as the story we tell about it. Indian is also a precise legal term found in our treaties and the Canadian Constitution. The word Firewater is a direct translation of the Nehiyaw or Cree word Iskohteowapoe. The word we use for alcohol, Iskoteo, means fire, and the suffix apoe means liquid. The story I heard about how alcohol received its name tells of a time when the fur traders bartered with alcohol and were notorious for watering it down. To make sure that we were not being cheated, we would take a mouthful of the whiskey, then spit it in a fire. If the fire flared up, the whiskey was pure. If the fire went out, we knew we were being ripped off. We are still being sold firewater, and we are still being ripped off. Only today, it's not for animal pelts. We pay for it with our lives and our health and our children's lives and futures. Acknowledgements. The idea for this work began with an email from my son, Ray Johnson, containing an article about alcohol and anarchy. The authors of the article lamented that they could not organize as a group because alcohol kept getting in the way. The idea that alcohol was the reason why people did not overthrow their oppressors nagged at me, and I began to think about it and our situation as colonized peoples. Is alcohol the reason we do not push harder for self-government? It was an idea that would not go away. As a Crown Prosecutor, I noted that the vast majority of people charged with offenses were intoxicated at the time they committed the offense. When I started looking at alcohol in this larger context and realized it touched everything about us, I began to have discussions with my wife, Joan Johnson. Through many conversations with her and sharing information, the concept for this work began to grow. First, I wrote an article for Justice as Healing, University of Saskatchewan Native Law Center, that I called, When He's Sober, He's a Good Guy. That didn't satisfy me, and I kept thinking about our people and alcohol. I came across the work of Dr. James Irvine and was surprised to discover that the leading cause of death in this territory was injury. Knowing that alcohol was behind most injuries, I began to wonder, what was the death rate from alcohol? Dr. Irvine has become a friend and has assisted tremendously in pointing me to the available literature. The more I researched, the more frustrated I became. There are no direct statistics for alcohol and its damaging effects in our territory. At this point, I wanted numbers to back up the argument.